Good morning. I'm Dusky Terry, President of ITC Midwest. For the third straight year, we are pleased to be the presenting sponsor for the Iowa Ideas Conference and extraordinarily proud of our partnership with the Gazette. As an electric transmission company serving 2/3 of the state, ITC Midwest is invested in and has a very real stake in the future of Iowa. We've supported this conference since its inception because we embrace its mission of gathering hundreds of Iowans together to explore the key questions and the big ideas that will shape the future of our state. ITC Midwest was formed in 2007 to improve electric transmission reliability and increase transmission system capacity in Iowa. And we followed through on that commitment with more than $4.1 billion in capital investments to date. Our investments in the system not only serve the changing needs of customers, they also provide additional capacities to support economic growth and development of low-cost renewable energy resources. Our investments have resulted in a 62% drop in transmission-related outages since ITC acquired the system and began operating it. From extreme weather events such as last year's derecho to the unprecedented transition to renewable energy, from the rapid adoption of electric vehicles to the increasing focus on energy system resilience, the electric utility industry is suddenly in the national spotlight. All of these forces reinforce the critical role of the transmission grid to support the changing landscape and ensure consumers have access to low-cost, clean, and reliable electricity. You know, we often talk about here at ITC about the power of connection, meaning connections are needed to deliver power to communities. There's also tremendous power when people connect to solve problems. Over the next couple of days, I hope you will engage in the breakout sessions, speak up during discussions, and share your ideas to create a brighter future. Open your mind to different points of view as we all work together to come up with the best solutions for making Iowa an even better place now and in the future. I want to thank you for your participation to help shape the future and wish you a great conference.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Zach Kacharski. I'm the executive editor at the Gazette, and this is the start of the afternoon sessions for Iowa Ideas. And so if you're expecting a conversation about apprenticeships, you're in the right place because that's what we're going to talk about. I will start with introducing the panel. I'm actually going to ask each to talk a little bit about their experience with their organizations. We'll start there and go into a series of questions. If you have questions that you would like to ask throughout this, please do so by using the chat feature, and we will work those into the conversation. So, Lori, I will start with you. If you could tell us a little bit about yourself,
Sure.
your organization, and how you got involved in apprenticeships.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lori Wildman. I'm the Alliant Energy Training Specialist for Iowa. A little bit beyond my bio, my background is in technical training and workforce training and programs. So the best way to think of my career here at Alliant in Iowa is everything apprenticeship. Alliant has been registered with the Department of Labor for apprenticeships since 2009. We have actually 23 classifications of apprenticeships going today, more in wind, and this is energy delivery, more in wind and generation also. What I love most about my career is being able to work with current apprentices and recruiting early talent for potential apprentices. We've got a couple new programs we'll talk about later, maybe to identify apprentices in Iowa. One is a high school program that leads to paid internships that's online. And we created a new position in Alliant to get more people in the door called a pre-apprentice labor. I enjoy writing grants to support tech training, but most importantly, I am part of an amazing technical training team here in Iowa that has more than 150 years of experience with the company. So that's just a little bit about me.
Cool. Dane, I will have you go next.
Yeah, thanks, Zach. Hello, everybody. My name is Dane Sulentic. I am the apprenticeship coordinator for the Iowa Department of Corrections. I've been in this role for going on 3.5 years now, almost my 4th year, which is crazy. In my professional career, I primarily started in higher ed, working at a few colleges and universities. And I also even was in high school level, working with at-risk youth. And just through my journey over the last 10 years, I ended up working with Iowa Workforce Development, working with apprenticeship grants, which ultimately led me to this role, working within corrections and overseeing all of their apprenticeship programs. Within corrections, we have 9 facilities across the state. We have about 275 active apprentices and 30 different registered occupations. All of our occupations are registered with the Department of Labor. These jobs, these programs are all work jobs, employable jobs that the incarcerated individuals partake in. So they're not only obviously earning and learning at the same time, but they're learning those valuable skills that will hopefully help them maintain that employability status once they get out and working with employers. And that's kind of the other half of my job, is working with employers, working with other state agencies, other nonprofits, to really bridge that gap upon reentry and help those individuals that will be releasing from our prisons find that career that they want, that will ultimately help them, move forward and not come back to prison. So thank you.
All right, Mike.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mike Sadler. I'm the business manager for the Plumbers and Pipefitters Local 125 and the president of the Cedar Rapids and Iowa City Building Trades. The Building Trades is made up of 16 different construction trades unions that operate in eastern Iowa. Some 6 counties, some the entire eastern side of Iowa. I started my apprenticeship in 1990. Spent 5 years in my apprenticeship, became a journeyman. Worked for another 10 years, went to an office working as an estimator project manager for a contractor. And now I am the business manager for the Plumbers and Pipefitters at Local 125 of Eastern Iowa.
Very cool. Well, I figure we can start with an easy opener. And this is kind of more just a orientation type of a question. But I'm curious, Mike, we'll stay with you first. Talk a little bit about what the apprenticeship program looks like. How many people take part in that? What are the apprentices usually doing? And where what age are they when they start? How do they get involved?
So our apprenticeship coordinator attends lots of career fairs, high school career fairs across the state, across Eastern Iowa. The Building Trades puts on an annual career fair for a dozen trades at our training center, Local 125, every spring. The Plumbers and Pipefitters in particular, we take applications for apprentices year round. We typically do 4 interview sessions a year. And as the need arises with the contractors, we start apprentices throughout the year round. COVID hit us a little bit. We typically run about 200 apprentices at all times in our apprenticeship program. We're down to about 130 right now, but we're building that back up every day, taking more in every week. And it goes pretty good. I mean, the apprentices start for a contractor day one. They get them registered with the DOL. They go to work day one, and they continue to work until they're done with their 5-year apprenticeship, either for one contractor or bouncing to several contractors as workload needs. They typically go to school 6 weeks out of the year. So 1 week, about every 6 weeks, a 40-hour class during the day. And they're back to work the next week and working and earning and learning.
All right, Lori, I'll jump to you on this next.
Okay, so our program is proficiency based, which means our apprentices, which are hired as employees day one, have to demonstrate proficiency and knowledge in 3 areas. Think of modules and books, just like tests, skill evals where they have to demonstrate hands-on, and most of their time is spent with their crews out in the field with OJT, on the job training. Depending on what position they're in is how many steps to that apprenticeship. Some of the most common you see out in the field, of course, are the line mechanic and the gas mechanic. A line mechanic has 8 steps, which can be just shy of 4 years. A gas mechanic is 6 steps, which is shy of 3 years. So that's what they have to obtain that journeyman status. You start with a boot camp after hire. A boot camp, it's a pretty intense boot camp with us for 3 weeks here at the training center in Marshalltown. We train all of Iowa here. So we get them ready in their skills they need for the field to get them off and running and get them the equipment. And then they are back to their ops centers or their locations to work with their crews. They come back to the training center twice a year for a week for what we call hands-on. Mike talked about recruiting. We do much the same thing. We not only go out, but we bring in as much as we can. And like I said, we've developed some programs to get that interaction going. COVID hit us the same. We didn't get to do a lot of in person. We do a lot with the National Guard, but we had to go virtual quickly. And I heard Mike say he's registered with the DOL, and same with Dane, I'm sorry. one thing I like to point out for apprenticeships too is that we have a lot of veterans in our apprenticeships. And since we are recognized as approved training, all of us, they can access their GI Bill for this kind of training. Ages are much the same. We can see them as early as 18 years old because the tech training we need for energy can be as short as 1 year up to 2 years, but that's typically the length of training to get an apprenticeship. So I'll end there.
Okay. Well, Dane, yours is a little bit different in terms, but I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about, how folks are, opted in or how they get involved in the program.
Sure. Yeah, it is quite a bit different. So when an individual enters our prison system, they get classified, which will determine kind of what their path will be, where they're headed, what different treatments they may need to do, classes they may need to take. Depending on where they go and what facility they're at will determine what apprenticeships are available. As I mentioned earlier, we do have 30 registered occupations throughout our 9 facilities. Not every single facility has all 30 occupations. It really does depend on the jobs. We have dozens of jobs, great jobs across our prisons throughout the state. And we also have Iowa Prison Industries, IPI, that also provides skilled work as well in the majority, if not all, of our facilities. So if an individual gets classified and is sent to a specific facility, they would meet with their counselor or the apprenticeship sponsor. Every facility has an apprenticeship sponsor that oversees the apprenticeships and the apprentices in that particular prison. And they ask what's available. And obviously they have to get the job. They have to go through that process. They apply, they talk with the supervisor of that shop or that area. And if they get hired on and there's an occupation that's available, then they could enroll in that apprenticeship. We don't make our programs mandatory for the incarcerated individuals in our programs or that are working in those fields. It's one of those where if they want to get the extra training, they can. It's an awesome pathway for them to learn different skills. We've had individuals who have had some long terms be in 5 or 6 different apprenticeships, and they've completed them all just because they've done all those jobs and they've been able to, complete those programs. So it really depends on where they go, what they're interested in, what jobs they're doing. Some of our programs, they start out as like a housekeeper, for example. That's an apprenticeship that we have. And somebody, they realize that, oh, wow, I'm learning, I'm doing some studying some books on this and getting paid while I do it. And that kind of catapults them into another occupation that they're interested in. So we've had guys that start as a housekeeper go all the way into, some of our trades or into maintenance in some of our facilities. So there's a multitude of ways that they could, end up in a program, but ultimately it's kind of where they go and what's available at that facility.
And I'm curious a little bit about, do they have to have a certain length of time of a sentence, or can they start an apprenticeship and then if they are released, transfer out into?
Yep. Yeah, great question. And there really isn't. We have individuals in programs with less than a year on their sentence all the way through lifers that have gone through our apprenticeship programs. We do, kind of an unwritten rule is, we would like an individual to be, go through the program for at least 6 months. That gives them enough time to accrue some OJT hours and also get their coursework done. It's one of the, and it's quite a bit of work administratively on our end to enroll, do all of the paperwork, get everything in. So we want to make sure these individuals are sane. But if an individual is going to be in for 3 or 4 months, or if that's all they have left on their sentence, I guess, they should be focusing on, that reentry piece at this point, not getting a job and working on an apprenticeship. So we do kind of say, hey, if you're 6 months or more with your sentence left, then yeah, we can go ahead and enroll you. If not, let's work with you on some other things because you're going to be getting out pretty soon. But yeah, I mean, there is no standard of, okay, you have this amount of time, sorry, you can't do it, or you're going to be here too long. It's really just kind of what's available and who's interested.
I'm curious, kind of as we transition, one of the questions is, the workforce shortage, and we hear about, there are more openings than people available, and that ongoing tightness in the labor market. I'm curious, does that impact the number of folks that are looking at apprenticeship programs? And does that make the competition for folks, Is there kind of tense competition? And what has that done? Lori, we could start with you.
Sure. It's a good topic. Recruitment of apprentices for us has always been very competitive, not only within the energy field, but other fields that use our skills, because the skills we train are very needed and very transferable. Apprenticeships have been in demand for a long time, and they're even a hot topic now. So that brings more attention. But you're right. It's a competitive recruitment process to get them in and train and retain. So there is a workforce shortage in that area, but they offer such great benefits. It's a desired career. So we've been fortunate to have a steady supply. We in Iowa hire apprentices daily. In Wisconsin, our counterpart, they batch hire, they do them in groups and work them through a time-based program. But here we go by need, we go by location, and we hire that way. Besides the current work situation, we have aging workforce. And that's our number one priority, is replacing that workforce. And that's where we are now. And apprentices serve such a vital role, such an experienced role, that we need them in to train them before we have certain positions age out. So yes, it's made it a little more competitive for energy, just because that field is so in demand.
Mike, how about for you?
Well, Lori touched on a lot of really good points. It is a struggle. Pre-COVID, we were having 60 to 70 people interview in an interview day. And sometimes it would take us 2 days to get through them all. We're struggling to get 35 to 40 nowadays for a daily interview. The aging workforce is something that you're always looking at, and that's the utmost importance for an apprenticeship program, is getting these young people. And we get apprentices that start between 18 years old and 30 years old. It's not all young kids, but getting them paired up with an aging journeyman and getting that knowledge out of that journeyman's head, so that experience and that knowledge continues on, because there's a lot of little tricks, there's a lot of little gims, a lot of little things that aren't taught exactly the way some older gentlemen and ladies have learned them, and it's valuable information. So it is a struggle. We're keeping up right now, but all the trades are struggling to get applicants for programs.
You know, Lori, I'll kind of jump to you on this one. You mentioned it in the opening, but I'm curious, how early do you make that connection? You mentioned,
Right.
you know, I think junior high.
We are. We're going down to middle school now.
What does that look like when you're trying to make a connection like that? I mean, I have a sixth grader at home, and you know, if you start to talk about what do you want to do with your life, like, we're not even to a place where there's a coherent answer yet. How are you formulating that?
I too have a background in education, so it's always fun to work with students again, but we're just trying to get out there and cultivate an interest. And that's what we just say. We just need that interest and energy, and we can do the rest. And so hopefully they'll keep us in mind. But we're in middle schools. We're talking about different careers they can have. And actually, we're telling them what they can do now. Because a lot of parents will say, my son's interested in becoming a lineman. He's only in 8th grade. What can he study in school now? What can he do? And so we try to develop that path and help them see that pathway. One of the simple things, and everyone doesn't think about, but you know, you're young enough, you're about ready to get your driving permit. Please keep your driving record clean. In our business, you have to have that CDL Class A with air brakes. And if you can't get that, you most likely won't be able to work in this industry, because you need that. But just to keep that relationship going, we're very heavy into the high schools now. We developed a program just for the high school juniors and seniors to get them interested and engaged. It's online. It's in the spring. We just launched it in 2021, and we're going to expand in 2022. But it was a 15-week, 2-hour program every week online with us, with our Alliant folks, in conjunction with Iowa Valley subject matter experts, and that went over really well. But the carrot for that program was that if you completed successfully, you were allowed to apply for a paid summer internship at one of our ops centers. And we had 11 interns. Turned out really well. 4 of them went to tech school. Hopefully we'll see them back someday. We're trying to build that relationship. and that engagement and encourage them in this field. If not, they're going to get skilled up and go somewhere and be great employees. We also do middle school, we do high school, but we're taking another look, a hard look. And another way to enter the company is through a pre-apprentice for a brand new position in Iowa and Wisconsin. So that's kind of a non-traditional way to enter our company. And it could be anyone from 18 plus without a tech school background. But just another way that we bring them in, get them trained to a level where they can bid what I call a traditional apprenticeship. So that's kind of how we're attacking, and we're starting at the middle schools now.
Mike, I'm curious, are you to the middle schools at this point, or, where's that entry point, the sweet spot?
So the building trades has not made the move to the middle schools yet. We are heavily active in the high schools, 9th through 12th, and in community colleges. We have contacts at Kirkwood. We're starting to develop contacts at Hawkeye Tech, at NICC and Piasta. We're making that connection. We've talked a lot about it, and the building trades at this point haven't wrapped their head around getting into a junior high school and making that connection and seeing the value of it. And maybe we're missing the boat, but we just haven't made that leap yet.
That's fair. So Dane, I'm kind of curious, bringing it to you. You mentioned that you have, external businesses that you partner with. How do those partnerships come to be?
Yeah, it's a lot of just outreach. I think when the governor was speaking a little bit earlier, before COVID, we were doing governor roundtables. Future Ready Iowa has been a big, huge, awesome initiative and push to get employers involved. We were bringing employers into our facility to do tours so they can see what's going on. We all kind of have our perceptions of what prison is like based off what we watch on TV. And you don't really think of, all of these programs and these shops that are offered in the prisons. But once you walk in and you see it firsthand, you're like, whoa, I had no idea that they were doing this, or they're building this or creating this or whatever it may be. And so it really opens the eyes of an employer to say, hey, oh, wow, there is some skilled workers in here. And it's just a continued outreach. We work very closely with Iowa Workforce Development, our other state agencies, other nonprofits around the state. We have a community college partnership where we have a community college in every one of our facilities to help with, finishing their high set, any other courses. We actually use some of their vocational classes for our apprenticeship programs. So we really try to integrate ourselves and within that, state agency fabric, and working and partnering to show, hey, this is what we're doing. These are the jobs that we have. These are the workers that we have. Employer, do you have any questions? What would you like to see? Would you like to speak with anyone? And just kind of grassroots, just, we have employers who know what we're doing inside. They call us, they ask us if, hey, we have these openings. Do you have any individuals leaving and coming to this area of the state? That's the other thing too. We have 9 facilities across the state. And just because an individual is in one facility in one part of the state doesn't mean that's where they're going to release to when they get out. So it's important that it's a statewide initiative, that we talk to employers in every corner of our state. And again, working with our partners really helps us get that word out. We also have Iowa Workforce Development advisors in 4 of our prisons. Our minimum prisons are kind of our release centers, if you will, that help individuals directly one-on-one with that releasing back into the society. And so they make those connections. So there's a lot of different ways that we kind of make that, but that's part of my job too, is to educate, sit on panels like this, explain what we do. And, if an employer, if something, piques your interest, or, you're like, oh, I want to know more about that, you can always reach out to me. So.
Right. Well, I'm curious, each of you, COVID has impacted everything. And I think everybody's alluded to this already, but I'm kind of curious if you could talk about the impact that COVID had on how the training was delivered during that period, and the impact that it's had, in bodies, and what that's looked like. And Mike, I'll start this time with you.
So back in March of 2020, when COVID really hit and everything started shutting down, our training center shut down. And it took us about 2 months Our instructors worked at our training center during the shutdown, developing online training for our apprentices to the extent that you can give online training in a hands-on facility. It was a struggle. It was different, but we used a Zoom platform, or actually Microsoft Teams platform, and we held classes and we got some training done. It wasn't perfect. Not all the classes got taught, but we did get them through some of them, so they didn't lose an entire year with the training. Going forward from last fall, I believe we started back with in-class training, and it was a different scenario. We had smaller class sizes. We were separated with social distancing. We had masking guidelines, but we got through it and we got back to it. And we're back full steam ahead at our training center now. Have been for about 6 months, with all the students back in class, full class sizes, and getting our training done.
Okay. Lori, how about you?
Mike, I hear much the same. We actually in 2019 on a different matter started making all of our apprentice work digital, because our apprentices, when they're out in the field, everybody works on what we call a tough book. And so they could access all their apprenticeship materials on their tough book, no matter where they were, especially with reading and doing some tests. We built some later in 2019, I worked to build some safety related and required training online. So our crews, when they had an inclement weather day, they could actually do it on their tough books rather than go to an ops center and travel. But again, no one saw COVID coming. So we just kind of scratched the surface in 2019 and got those apprentices on tough books and got them trained that way to go digital. Had 6 or 7 courses out there online, but then it hit, and who knew how convenient those courses were. But unfortunately, we didn't have enough of them for the entire company. So one of the side effects of that was our company right now is building a brand new learning management system, and we just launched it yesterday. And everything's under one platform and everything is digital. But I think they saw the need in the spring, how quickly you had to switch. We did training online, like Mike said, we did it virtually. We brought back limited numbers in June, but very limited, very distanced. Again, because folk in our field, we need them. We had them separated in different locations. Not all Marshtown people were in Marshtown. We had them remote to try to keep everybody happy and healthy. We're full-time come August back, but we have training here today. But again, adhering strictly to protocol. One thing that did affect big time for us, I think I mentioned it earlier, is that we were bringing people on site. We bring high schoolers in, parents, schools, people who are interested in this field. We'll do what we call preview days. So we can kind of show and tell what we do, and they get to go on the field and observe. That came to a halt. No one from the outside is coming in. Even now, it might be 1 or 2. It's restricted our recruiting. I think I heard others say we go out, not as much as we did, but it's very limited. We're doing a lot virtually with that too. We're doing a lot of career fairs now that are virtually, but it was a quick pivot and lesson learned. And like I said, one side effect for Alliant was we went to a brand new learning management system that we started building.
That you wouldn't have gotten that had you not had to make that quick pivot.
I think I would agree. And so take 6 months, 7 months, whatever, we've been building it and to launch it. And hopefully it's going to be as convenient and as efficient we hope it to be. And hopefully won't need it. I hope they get to come back to class and get out again. But right now it's all about online. It's about digital for that learning.
Dane, I'm curious. I know that there was a lot of effort to kind of change the movement patterns and everything else in some of the facilities and minimize contact. And what did that do to the apprenticeship programs?
Yeah, and I'd say, we kind of had our own barriers that, kind of related just to prisons mainly, whereas it was locked down, the movement was shut down. But our programs, a lot of them are offered, at least the related training instruction is self-study, which in this case was fantastic because an individual can still continue to get their books and do their testing or at least get their, take their books with them and do some studying. However, they unfortunately weren't able to get their on-the-job training anymore. It was shut down for quite some time, or we would open back up and then another case would break out and they'd shut down again. And I just to piggyback off what Lori said too, I think one of the biggest impacts for us is people coming in. Like I mentioned before, like having employers come in and people, nonprofits, different people coming in to see what we do. That's huge. That's where the conversation starts. But it was just, people still can't come in. I mean, the prisons are still basically shut down as far as visitors coming in. And I think will be for the time being, other than a select few, I think. But yeah, we're not doing any events or anything like that. I will say, just from necessity, like I said, us being, statewide, we kind of got onto the whole, Zoom calls ahead of the time where we were connecting our facilities with employers. So an employer could connect via Zoom to 3 or 4 different facilities and talk to individuals across the state. And that was an awesome thing for us to try and do successfully. Little did we know that, wow, that's going to be the way we do things going forward for the time being. And it still is. So luckily we were able to kind of troubleshoot that and get that figured out, again, before we even knew we had to. But as far as our programs, really it was the lack of them being able to work and getting them back, getting their training on the OJT going again and letting them finish up. Because you had a lot of individuals, again, maybe they only had 500, 600 hours left to finish their program. But when you're shut down for 2 or 3 months and that individual's getting out the next month, unfortunately, they weren't able to finish that. Now, I will say they could potentially get out and finish that if they want to, but it's just one of those unfortunate, casualties, I suppose, of this whole COVID pandemic is some of our individuals weren't able to complete their program before release when they would have had things been normal. So yeah, it definitely impacted us, maybe a little differently than on the outside, but it definitely it still is impacting us. So
Dane, I'm curious if you've been able to reset some of those business contacts, and for those folks that were close to finishing an apprenticeship, do you have those external kind of, hey, let's do a placement here to get you those last few steps? Were you able to get that?
Yeah. And like I said, our apprenticeship sponsors and our reentry coordinators and our IWD advisors do a fantastic job helping those individuals. And it was just, they would do that regardless. It just, unfortunately, some of these, apprentices weren't able to finish up, but we were able to maintain those employers. But just, like what Lori and Mike were saying, they were shut down too. So it was like, you can only do so much. It was a really weird, everyone's kind of in limbo of, but unfortunately, well, I mean, it's good that we still had individuals releasing, but for them to get out and maybe not get the resources or that connection that they would have, that was pretty impactful. But I know our staff did everything they could to help them, hey, touch base with this employer. And maybe it was all done virtually, which, obviously we all know works pretty well. But yeah, it just is a kind of like, someone said it earlier, a pivot. You had to adjust on the fly. And we still have people getting out of prison. We have had over the last 2 years. That didn't stop just because of COVID. So we still kind of had to work on that and make sure we were doing what we can to help these individuals go back to where they were releasing to and hopefully secure employment. So
I'm kind of curious, Lori, on top of the pandemic, there was the derecho, and it's no secret. I think the Alliant crews across Iowa were spread to the max. Was that an opportunity? Did apprentices get involved there?
They did. There's kind of an upside to that, kind of a downside. It was a wonderful learning opportunity in the most drastic of conditions. And for us, our apprentices had on the line side electric, they had to be hot. They had to be step 5. Everybody else had to remain on the ground, but it was all hands on deck. We had 700 crews working the entire state of Iowa. A lot of those were outside contractors too. We were going to work, working 14-hour days, and we didn't have lights on our own home. And so the only energy we would see would be at our ops centers, but working long days. Best thing ever though was completely safe. We didn't have one tragedy, one accident, but it was challenging. So if you're a new apprentice, and we talk about storm restoration, this was storm restoration. It was destruction on steroids. So it just wasn't, it's a complete rebuild. And like you said, Zach, Marshalltown and Cedar Rapids, probably had some of the worst impact, and we just have come off a tornado in 2018 that took the town. So it's like, here we go again. But proud of the groups, but you're right, it was learned by fire, and it was some of the best experience they ever had. And talk about major OJT hours, but like I said, they had to be hot to do the live work. Everybody else was acting as a groundsman. We needed everyone. Everyone in the company was reporting. And again, during that COVID, it was real unique because everyone had been at home, but yet you have to go to an ops center, and again, distance, and you have these large numbers of crews, and it was a unique challenge. So it was a test, but I think we passed.
Well, and it would be a never-ending test from that apprentice level of,
Oh, yeah.
ongoing work. So, Mike, I'm curious, derecho, in terms of, I would imagine that did create some OJT opportunities.
On the service side of things, it did for sure. A lot of rooftop units got destroyed. Major destruction of buildings didn't really take place. In a few places, right? The ice arena got tore up. There was some work that was generated out of that. Mostly your rooftop units and air conditioning units that on the sides of houses. So it did create some, not to the extent that it did for some folks. The roofers, in fact, were busier than busy and are still busy, carpenters and whatnot. But yeah, it did create some work.
I'm curious if each of you could talk a little bit about the high school. And we've seen a resurgence in some of the trade programs and the technical programs at the high school level. Does that help in terms of building those connections? And how connected do each of you feel to the region? Are there spots that you heavy draws, and then are there spots that are maybe trickier to get into different schools? I guess, Mike, we'll start with you.
Sure. Yeah, I think the reintroduction of the industrial tech classes in high schools is vitally important for our crafts. That's what we do, hands-on stuff every day, heavy in math. And as far as the draw, we do a really good job with some outstanding apprentices from small towns, small communities, farm kids. We do good on the big city kids too. I mean, there's some that come out of the big city kids, but the better draw we get is out of the smaller rural communities. And I spoke earlier about the building trades career fair. We get kids from Strawberry Point, Washington, Riverside, all the little communities around Cedar Rapids. We have a van load of kids that come up from Cahokia, Missouri to our career fair in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. So we draw from pretty wide, pretty far swath of eastern Iowa.
That's cool. Lori, how about for you?
Okay, so for Alliant, I agree with Mike wholeheartedly. Career and technical education has come back big time, and there's a huge spotlight on it because of the skills that are needed. So all the schools are working really hard, and they're not only doing that, but they want workplace experiences because there's an emphasis in the state with that. So we try to work with as many schools as we can and be on their boards for CTE and encourage that. So obviously we need the mechanical skills, but we also need some other STEM skills, because believe it or not, Mike is STEM. The way his apprentices learn, same with us. We have certain levels of math and electric and blueprint reading and gone on and on, but people don't typically think of utilities as STEM, but we definitely are. So that kind of transfers into besides the CTE, but we need other skills too for apprentices we're seeing, because everything changes beyond, like I said, obvious technical and mechanical, but they need computer skills because they've been raised on smartphones and they haven't been on keyboards, and we're back to the keyboard. They're back to a tough book. And so we go back to a certain level of computer skills. We need certain levels of math. We need comprehension skills, right? To teach that, to get that knowledge and to comprehend it and use it at a later date. In our field, we need customer service because we're out there in the public and within ourselves with contractors. So if they pick that up too, that's a big plus for us. We like to see work styles recognized. We like to see workplace culture recognized, and safety too, if they can incorporate that. So we try to be as involved as we can on CTE in our area.
Dane, I'll kind of take it a little bit different direction for you.
Yeah, I'm not going into the high schools. That would probably be frowned upon if I.
Oh, I was going to make that joke at junior high, but I'm glad that you did it and it wasn't me.
I don't think that would go over well with parents or teachers if I
No.
came in promoting our prison apprenticeships.
No, maybe a few. But
Yeah.
no, in all seriousness though, how do you go about adding apprenticeship programs? How do you decide what to offer and what goes into kind of designing those programs?
Yeah, good question. I mean, our apprenticeship program started in 2015. Was when we became a sponsor through DOL, and it was kind of a grassroots thing. This was my predecessor, but he looked around and saw all of these awesome jobs that we had in the facilities. And then the more he learned about apprenticeship and that model, it was like, we can do this. So it really started in Anamosa in our Iowa prison industry shops. And it was a couple apprenticeship programs we registered. And then it just kind of snowballed from there, because it's like, oh, well, we have cooks, we have maintenance, we have individuals doing landscaping, and it's gone from there and there. And then when I kind of took the baton from him, it became more of a focus of, okay, what are the needs of our state? What are employers looking for? What sectors, what industry is there a need for? And that's kind of what we look at as far as the programs that we offer. Within our prison industries, a lot of maintenance, a lot of manufacturing, technical skills. We have all of the trade programs within our facilities that do maintenance on our prisons. We also have office manager and IT apprenticeship. Lori, when your response earlier, I was hearing soft skills, and that's huge. And that's something that we implement into these programs. So when I go to see what we have, I first have to see, do we have that job? You have to have the job. You have to have a paid wage. And if that job is, has been implemented or started in a facility, okay, well, as far as an apprenticeship goes, okay, what training could we add? All right, well, maybe we can partner with one of our community colleges. Maybe it can be online training. Maybe it can be, through a series of textbooks, whatever it may be. And we utilize all of those platforms for our training. We have our own LMS that we utilize for training as well. So it just kind of depends. It's kind of one of those, hey, let's if we have this new shop opening up, what's the job going to be? Is it apprenticeable? We are actually working with a couple private sector companies right now, mold injection. And we've actually collaborated with these companies to start a mold injection operator apprenticeship. So at our release, a couple of our release centers, our individuals are able to leave during the day, go work at this employer, get their on-the-job training, and then come back and do their classroom piece. And the employer's involved, we're involved, and it's a really fantastic, and it's only a 2,000-hour program, so it's pretty quick as far as apprenticeships go. So we just kind of look at what's out there. We look at the landscape and see what the needs are, and now there's a need everywhere. We actually started a nursing program, a CNA, a nursing assistant program at our Mitchellville facility, our women's facility. And right before COVID, we were so close to getting that really rolled out, and we were going to implement an apprenticeship with that. And we just didn't get there because we had to stop, and we haven't been able to start that up again. But it's a huge need. Obviously now, anything in the medical field is a huge need. So that would be another one that hoping soon we could get that started back up. So it's just looking what's out there, what the needs are, and seeing if we can implement that, work with employers in that industry or that sector and for the training, and build those pathways so when these apprentices get out, they can hit the ground running.
Dane, I'll stay with you for another question. And I was struck. We had some reporting in the Gazette this past weekend about some of the apprenticeship programs. And specifically, I picked up on a line that 130 inmates had asked to transfer to Newton to take part in the home building program. And it made me want to know, like, when those requests get made, how are you able to accommodate those these days? And obviously that shows there's a demand and a desire to go into that space. Are you able to kind of move folks around to accommodate that? Yeah,
absolutely. And for those of you who don't know, we have a house building program, Homes for Iowa, at our Newton facility. And we're basically building 1,200 square foot houses from the ground up and shipping them across the state, affordable housing. And it's a fantastic program. And we actually have 4 different apprenticeships that are offered down there at the site. And, you know, we have orders coming in for houses, and we need to have, you know, offender workers building these houses. So we've set some flyers out, the information out to the other facilities about, hey, if you could, and if you qualified, basically, if you classified to come to this facility, would you be interested? And yeah, we've had over 130 individuals say, if I'm able to, I would like to do it. And that's something we're working with our correction, you know, executive team on, is like, okay, how can we accommodate these numbers? And there's always ways to move and accommodate for it, but there's room right now in that facility to, you know, I believe, to get a majority of those individuals in right now. And then we would just have to look down the road of, you know, maybe moving other individuals out to other facilities or whatever that would look like. But it definitely can be done. And that's a direction we're trying to go, is really, you know, looking at what do our, you know, offenders or incarcerated individuals, what is it that they want to do? What are they interested in? And if building, carpentry, trades, you know, labor, construction is what they want to do, that Newton facility is where they need to be. And that's what they can do. So it's their path would be to try to get to that Newton facility. And all of DOC is going to work with that to try to help navigate some of these individuals in their path as they go.
Curious, you know, this is, you know, part of Iowa Ideas is to also imagine what could be. And so I'm curious, Lori, Mike, and Dane, are there some unmet needs, or if you had the magic wand to add something, or to, you know, bring attention to a piece, what would it be? You know, whether it's to make the program more successful, whether it's to get better connections, what do you need, and what can we do to help that? And Lori, I'll start with you.
Okay, I don't know if it'd be so much a change, but for me, I'd see expansion, and especially in the realm for technical apprenticeships for women. I would love, love, love to have more women in technical apprenticeships. Right now I have one, and she's a line mechanic apprentice, and she's doing an amazing job. But to get that mindset that this could be a fit, this is a great career, and to get that out there, because part of what we do is we want to represent the communities we serve. We're in small rural communities, we're in large, so we really want to represent where we are. And if it's a large, diverse community, we want our workers to represent that. But right now, at the top of my head, Zach, it's females in technical careers. And I would really like to focus on that all across the board, not just energy, just let them see what the trades are for women, get that exposure to them, and let them know what great careers they are.
Well, I know that Peggy Whitson, our keynote tomorrow, the astronaut, is a huge ambassador in that space, and is phenomenally interesting when it comes to that. Mm-hmm. Mike, I'm kind of curious for you, if you had the magic wand.
I would agree with Lori. The struggle that we have at the Plumbers and Pipefitters is getting applicants, female and minority applicants, to apply to our program. We had 38 apply the last time. We had one female and one minority. And I was at the University of Iowa talking with the president of the university and some folks. There were some folks, some of us from the building trades, a week ago. We were having this same conversation, and they said they struggle with that as well at the university. And what they've found, and I never put 2 and 2 together, is people of color and females feel they are uncomfortable entering into a career path where they don't have people that look like them as mentors. So until you start building up your membership, your workers, and getting some diversity, you're going to have a hard time drawing more diversity, more people of color and more females in, because they don't have a comfortable mentor to be with, to learn from, because they're walking into a predominantly white male classification and job, and they're not comfortable. It's that comfort level. And I had never thought about it that way until they said that at the university, because they have the same thing with professors, and not so much the students, but professors and office people and employees at the university. They struggle with that as well. So I would say it would be the same thing. And we have half a dozen females in our apprenticeship program right now, another 4 or 5 that are journey people in our membership. We have a few minorities, but not enough. And our international is real big on that as well. Diversification is the next challenge for the trades. And I think it's not just my trade, but all the trades. We need to look like the communities that we live in and that we represent and that we work in.
Excellent. Dane, how about for you?
Yeah, and again, my response will be a little bit different just because of the arena I'm in, and it's really no one's fault. I think it is just kind of is what it is. Even though I hate saying that, but it's more of the getting the word out and that employer engagement and allowing employers to see. Again, I've said this already, what we're doing and the amount of skilled work that we have in our prisons. We have 9,000 individuals in our prisons across the state. 95% of them are going to be getting out at some point. Now, they're not all in an apprenticeship, but a good majority of them are working. And a good majority of those individuals who are working are in apprenticeship. We have 300, over 300, or up to approximately 300 active apprentices at any given point. And we've had over 350 individuals complete their apprenticeship in the last few years. So it's really just how can we do a better job within DOC and just community-based, I suppose, of really connecting with employers to make that connection to help these individuals upon release. I keep hearing, we need more people, we need more workers. And, I'm kind of over here like, hey, we have individuals getting out. And I understand there's hiring policies and there's different things that, you wouldn't be able to hire some individuals depending on what their background is. But that's, for every one of those individuals, there's 5 others that you could potentially hire. And that's just where that communication and relationship building comes into place. So, we, like I said before, with the governor's Future Ready Iowa initiative, with her push to get into the prisons and kind of really showcase the skilled work that's being done inside. Before COVID, we had some awesome momentum and we were really starting to get there with employers seeing it. And now we're kind of back to starting that engine up again of, hey, come on back in, or hey, let's do a Zoom call of, what are you looking for? Where are you located? Let's connect you with some individuals who will be getting out soon or will be getting out, going to your area, and have a chat with them. And it's really just that building that relationship. It's not so much, hey, you need to hire this person. It's more of, talk to this group of individuals, talk to this facility, tell them about your company, tell them about the benefits of you hiring them. And then you'll get interest. Everyone coming out of prison is going to need a job, or at least the vast majority of them will, and they want to have careers. They want to do better than, what they did when they got, before they went to prison. So I would say that's one of our biggest challenges right now. I mean, and there's so many factors against us, with COVID and everything else, and it just being in prison, the barriers itself there. But we're getting there. I have confidence. I'm a true believer in the apprenticeship model and the pathway. And, our employers that we do work with are fantastic. And I just hope to expand that and continue to grow and continue to help our individuals releasing find that steady employment.
Dane, I have some ideas and I'll shoot you an email after the session of some connections
Awesome.
to make. But we also had a comment that was made by a member of the audience that said, I teach high school in Waterloo. Please contact us at the Waterloo Career Center to discuss opportunities. And so that's somebody that's interested in making a connection if there's not one already there for the panelists. And so that, just passing that along. Mm-hmm. And so one of the other questions, and I think this was touched on even at the beginning, is the pipeline and what it looks like for folks that are going to retire. And my question is, are there enough folks, Lori and Mike, in the pipeline in the programs that you have? And to the idea, Mike, that you mentioned of diversification, where are you going to try and change the narrative? And since I saw you look up to the sky, Mike, I'll start with you.
At this point, we're keeping up with attrition out of our membership. Keeping up, and it's a struggle. It's a daily struggle because you have as many retire in a month as you take in new in a month. That should slow down here shortly, but it's going to pick back up again in just a simple few years. Where do you go to fill that need, and how do you get the diversification you're looking for? I would love to have the answer to that. I'd be interested with with some of Dane's people coming out. I know it's a little tricky. I think it's a little more tricky for someone who's in the construction industry, hiring people and taking them as contractors into a facility than hiring them directly into a facility for you, because from my experiences, it's pretty tough to get somebody with a shady background into a hospital or on a construction project, even a processing facility anymore. They have to have a fairly decent background or the company just won't let them in as a contractor. Back to the diversification, I think we just got to keep pounding after it and keep getting the name out there and keep looking for people and trying to get people convinced to apply and come in.
Okay. Lori?
We're just keeping up too. And like I mentioned earlier, the recruitment process is very competitive. And one of the reasons we're going, looking at strongly early talent and doing as much as we can. And a good positive that came from that is diversity. 40% of my high school students that were in the program were from diverse backgrounds, and same with our pre-apprentice laborers. It is where you locate, where we're recruiting. We want to represent our communities. So that's an upside to the early development. One thing I failed to mention that is very effective, Mike touched on, is that they want to see workers like themselves. So depending on what school I'm going to, what county where I'm going, I like to bring an apprentice from that area. So they see one of their own. This is a success story, and I don't need to talk. I want the apprentice to talk and tell why I chose this, what my life is like, why this is so great, why this encourage them to go to be an ambassador for apprenticeships. That's probably one of the most effective recruiting tools we have when we go in front of high school students or parents, is to let them tell their story. And now I'm down to the level of, I'm going to do some Future Ready Iowa Summits here coming up in the next couple of weeks. And they want to talk about the high school program. Okay, well, Lori's going to talk like 5 minutes, and then I'm going to have my high school interns talk and tell them why they did this, what they got out of it, where they think they're going to go in their career path. I think, especially when you're looking at more representation, I think that's effective. Let them tell their story and try to get people into energy.
Where do you hit with those high school interns? Are you hitting juniors and seniors, and how long are they working?
The program runs 4 months. The actual prerequisite to be online with us 2 hours a week. For this year it's going to be 14 weeks. The program itself is 6 weeks long, full time. We rotate between the crews. They go 1 week electric, 1 week gas. They do combo, they do wind, they do generation, they do field engineering. And then that last week they get to choose what they really want to concentrate on. We were very fortunate. Our intern program this summer was funded by Future Ready Iowa grant, specifically for high school internships. So that was great. And that's one of the reasons we're looking at being able to expand it across Iowa in 2022, was because of this experience. So right now, 6 weeks, summer paid. But like I said, the goal, depending on if they were junior, senior, we love to encourage them to go on to a tech school. Those that did for us, we supported with a scholarship. The juniors may come back to us again next summer. The path could be that they do an internship, and if they're skilled enough, they may be able to enter the company through a PAL, a pre-apprentice labor. So we're trying to make those options available to attract talent.
Excellent. Well, Dane, I asked the governor about this, and I'm curious, some of the apprenticeship programs have been put on pause at Anamosa. How close are you to bringing those back online, and what needs to happen in order to be able to do that?
Yeah, and first and foremost, the safety and security of the other incarcerated individuals, staff is priority, and that's kind of what we've been looking at there for the last 7 months now, is to really kind of hone in. Okay, what do we need to do? What do we need to change? And then what could we start back up? We are going to have some shops that were there that just they're suspended indefinitely, and they may not ever come back. We've also done some reclassification of some of our inmates and what they would be able to do based off kind of where they are, what their crimes were, that kind of thing. So that's kind of shifted a lot of especially Anamosa, being that it's a minimum maximum security prison. Some of the individuals that were in these shops may not be able to do that anymore because they got reclassified. So I think one of the focuses we're looking at that we can do right now in my area is more what short-term training can we do, more of those 2,000, 3,000 hour apprenticeships. And, we have 8 other facilities that have other shops going on. Could we potentially bring one of those over to Anamosa and start one of those, potentially like textiles or something else that just doesn't have as high risk or as many potential, weapons that, like things that could be tools that could be turned into weapons, that kind of thing. So we are working with the facility on that. I do know there is the movement, guys are able to get back. Some of them are going back to work. Like the facility jobs, your cooks, your, housekeepers, things like that. They're working again. So it's been a slow process, and which it should be, because we want to make sure we get things right. But we will eventually get some, other training going on there, and get the apprentices that, weren't in those shops that are getting shut down back to work and going again. So it's just one of those, we just have to do our due diligence and make sure we do it right.
This will be the last question that I ask each of you. And so, Dane, I'll stay with you and kind of go to the others. But if there are business partners that see this and are interested, is it as easy as an email to you, or how do they get involved?
Absolutely. And that's one of the things I hear all the time is like, I don't know who to call. I'm in the northeast part of the state. There's not a prison up there. I'm not close to a prison. Who do I call? And you absolutely can reach out to me, and I can put you to the individual at a prison or at our central office or whoever it may be. My supervisor, Dan Clark, is the director of Iowa Prison Industries. So if you want to potentially partner or collaborate in that way, we can do that. But I always say the simplest way is just to shoot me an email or give me a call. And I can connect you to what you need to do or who you need to speak with. Reentry is a huge part of my job, and, me getting out, talking on panels like this, working with employers, that's what I would expect. If you have any questions, anything, reach out to me, and we'll work with you wherever you are in the state. So,
Mike, how about for you? If folks want to get involved in the apprenticeship program, how do they do it?
Absolutely. Email or phone me, call me at the hall. I will get you in touch with our coordinator, with our instructors, whomever you'd like to speak with, and get you the information that you need to apply.
Lori, same process. How do we find you?
Same here. Might be easiest to get me via email because I'm out in the field, literally out in the field a lot. I work closely with workforce development and how they start up apprenticeships too. I speak for them at Future Ready Iowa Summits. I also am a member of a regional workforce board in the state of Iowa. So any way I can help, just reach out.
Well, that's one of the things to love about Iowa. It's as simple as a phone call or an email, and you're findable. So you can love it and you hate it when you're maybe the editor of a newspaper and people want to call you about not getting their paper. Anyway, I digress. I want to say thank you to each of you for taking the time with us for Iowa Ideas. It's been a fantastic hour, and I've learned a lot, and so I appreciate that. And so to Lori, to Mike, and to Dane, thank you for your time this afternoon and for participating in Iowa Ideas.
Thank you.
Thank you to our audience.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Have a great afternoon.
Have a good afternoon. Thank you.